Disability Independence Day is basically the anniversary of ADA to recognize progress and highlight quality for individuals with disabilities.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Hey everybody, my name is Justin Amoyal. I'm the CEO and founder of Impruvon Health. Really excited to be here today. Aero Senior Living is one of our favorite partners, and they had asked me to come and join, basically to talk about the American Disabilities Act, ADA. And so very excited to kind of review this with the team, especially with Peggy. And we have some unique experience as it relates to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as seniors. My company, Impruvon Health, supports group homes, supported living agencies, assisted living agencies, independent living agencies, as well as other congregate care settings with a major focus on individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the country. So we're really excited to be here today and just talk through some of these very important topics with Peggy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Peggy Goudreau from the North Royalty location, and I'm very excited to be here. I have had Parkinson's for 15 years, and I had a DBS surgery last year, and I'm doing remarkably well.
Peggy, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. One of the questions I know that some of the team members wanted us to talk about is really just what Disability Independence Day even is. And so I can kind of kick this off with that one just to start the conversation. Is that all right with you, Peggy?
That is fine because I've never heard of this before, so I'd be very interested in it.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be the one to share it with you. So Disability Independence Day is typically celebrated on July 26th, and it's basically the anniversary of ADA, the American with Disabilities Act that was passed in 1990. So this basically is to recognize progress and highlight equality for individuals with disabilities that live in the United States, I think, as well as internationally, just as a day. But it's really to reaffirm the rights of individuals with disabilities.
Okay, what did it accomplish, and how did it benefit people with disabilities?
It was all about equality, and I think there's still a lot of progress that needs to be made, but there's a lot of progress that has already been made, and that's very clear. One clear example is just the way that you think about individuals with disabilities in all areas of their public life, jobs, school, transportation. It feels to me like a lot of this has changed. I actually was born only 3 years after the American Disabilities Act was passed. So I don't have the best memory of how things were before it, but I can tell you since then, inclusivity is a big topic, especially in our industry. So helping individuals with helping individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have a more quality of life, and putting processes, technologies, strategies, team members in place, or even adaptive equipment to help them get to work on time or have an easier time doing what they're actually supposed to be doing at work, giving them a quality of life and health equity. You know, that I think is really where ADA has made a big impact in many people's lives, as well as the loved ones and or guardians and friends of those individuals with disabilities.
Right. Do you think there is room or a place for the caretakers in the Disability Act?
I think that there needs to be more of a place for the caretakers, to be honest, in the Disability Act. I think a lot of times the caretakers are somewhat forgotten or not made as much of a priority as they truly are in the life of the individual with disabilities. Independence is obviously extremely important, and enablement of independence is sometimes reliant on the caregiver themselves. And so while I think that they were taken into account, I don't think that I don't think that they were at the level that they potentially could have been. The caretaker can make a huge impact and has a big influence on the individual that's living with the disability. And I think it should be up to the individual with the disability to determine how much support they need or want. But there should be mechanisms for the caregivers to be able to be funded and for the caregivers to be able to be found, and for the caregivers to be able to be accessible.
Hmm, interesting. And what does it mean to have a disability?
That's such a tough question to answer. I think that there's like technical definitions. Just someone with a physical or mental impairment that limits their ability to conduct regular life activities is probably along the lines of how this would be defined if you looked it up online or like in a dictionary. To me, I think someone with a disability is just someone that can't do what everybody else can do for whatever reason that is. And I think technology, I think incredible teams like the team at Arrow, um, are what it takes to help that individual do whatever they want to do. And um, I think now with how fast technology is advancing and how incredible some of these operators actually are and how much they care about the people that they support, there is real potential for collaboration between technology, the individual themselves with the disability, and the team and family that supports them. And I think that's what it takes is all those elements working together to deliver on health equity and a better quality of life.
So do you think that people with disabilities aren't given the same opportunities as somebody without?
Another super tough question. I think it depends on where they are, like geographically. I think it depends on their age. I think it depends on their support system and their pre-existing capabilities. I think that people do have the opportunity now to find opportunities with or if they have or don't have disabilities. For example, at Impruvon, we employ neurodiverse individuals to help us design and develop parts of our software. Someone has to know about that in the first place to have the opportunity to work here. And so we try really hard to get the word out with different programs, but I think there's opportunities there. I think it's just sometimes difficult to either find out about them or work through the application process or find the right funding mechanisms to make that sort of opportunity happen. But I think definitely now versus the 90s, there's a lot more opportunities for individuals with disabilities to find that quality of life and health equity. For example, employment has really made some significant changes in employing neurodiverse or disabled individuals, as well as education, finding ways that you could be more inclusive and teach and enable learning for individuals that potentially learn a little different than others. And so I think that change has been made, but there's still a lot of change that's required and a lot of change to come.
I've I've never heard this saying before, but what was the Capitol crawl and how did it affect ADA?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, that Capitol crawl was before I was born. I also had never heard of it, but dozens of people with disabilities apparently left behind their mobility aids, like their walkers, for example, and actually crawled up the steps of the US Capitol building in 1990.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I had never heard of it either, but I can only imagine the impact that would have watching people legitimately crawl up the steps
Right.
of the Capitol building. And so it sounds pretty impactful. I was looking into it before this interview, and it was pretty amazing.
I'll say. Would be a sight to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and has the ADA changed America in any way, or is it status quo?
I think it has. I don't know what you could attribute directly to ADA and what you attribute just to having great people that really care about individuals with disability and just equality in general. But when you travel to different countries, it's pretty clear just walking into buildings or parking lots with all the handicap spaces or various accommodations that are made within buildings that we see in our daily lives. It's very different here than other countries. although I think there are some other countries that do a great job. But yeah, I do think that America takes disabilities very serious. I think that it's recognized by the leadership and the people that make important decisions that this is very important. And there's incredible advocacy agencies that work across the country to fight and advocate for individuals with disabilities every single day. And I do think that ADA, as well as many other events, have changed America's perspective on individuals with disabilities. For example, getting individuals with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities out of institutionalized settings. That's only been, within the last 60 years that's really became real. And that's a huge change. Before I was born, it sounds like individuals that were born with very difficult to manage mental disabilities or intellectual disabilities or developmental disabilities were kind of locked away in these statewide institutions that now the push is really to transition individuals that are still in those institutions out of them and into home and community-based settings where they can have that quality of life. And so they're living in homes like you would see in a regular neighborhood with a single family home or townhouse or apartment. And it allows individuals to not live in this institutionalized setting, which is terrible, and have a great life and contribute to society. And so I think that there are major changes that are continuously being made for this population, and it's amazing to see. And as a technology and as a company, Impruvon will always do whatever we can to support individuals with intellectual, developmental, or really any sort of disability.
Right. Being someone with a disability, with Parkinson's, do you think people that are exposed, like actors and actresses, Michael J. Fox, that he helps the ADA?
I honestly don't know what celebrities do with the ADA specifically, or Michael J. Fox specifically, but I do know there's a lot of support from celebrities as well as other well-known figures for individuals with disabilities. And I think that that's really important. It sheds light on how this has no this affects everybody. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how rich you are, where you live. Everyone knows people with disabilities. Everyone has people with disabilities in their life or in their family. And I think it's very important for people that are in the public eye to show that it's okay, and you should do whatever you can to support individuals with disabilities. You should give quality of life and anything you can to make others' lives better. And I think that I think celebrities, as well as, I don't know what you call them, but non-celebrities, regular citizens, take this very serious. And it's wonderful to see, honestly, in our work. It's amazing to see how dedicated some of the teams are that support the individuals that we also serve with our technology. Like that is what I'm really trying to convey, is like that's when the magic happens, is when you have an incredible support team, you have incredible technology, and the individual is motivated to kind of work towards their goals. Those three main components drive significant change and can really improve the quality of life of the individual.
Right. What challenges do you think that people with disabilities still face today?
Sad to say, like, I think one of the biggest challenges is internal. I think there's a lot of anxiety and thoughts for the individual themselves about how others perceive them. And some of them are justified, of course, but maybe some of them are just out of anxiety. And that's really sad because, I think individuals are sometimes impacted by things that maybe happened to them in the past or that they're nervous about. And it holds them back from doing so much. So I think that's one problem. I think another is for that small subset of people that just don't care. Personally, I think it's ridiculous, and it doesn't really register with me. But when you're in a restaurant or you're in a grocery store, if there's somebody that is disabled in any way and they need help with something, you should just help, just like someone should help you if you need help with something. And I think it's a big struggle when someone is disabled and expects something that should just kind of be out of human nature to happen around them, and maybe it doesn't. And so I think that's a big struggle too, to be able to like take that in and go home with that in your mind as someone with a disability. I could imagine that would be very, very hard. I don't personally have
Yeah,
one.
I've experienced it myself and it's a hard pill to swallow. It's tough.
Yeah, would you mind sharing anything about that experience? I'm
Well,
sure
I've
it is.
experienced where if I go to a store or something like that or the mall,
Yeah,
if I am going down an escalator and and people see I'm struggling, nobody offers to help, like to
right.
carry my bags down and or to see if I need help just getting down. And the doors open, they'll, walk right in front of me. And not everybody's like that. There are so many good people out there that are willing to help and willing to do what they can, but it's still out there.
I agree. It definitely is. I mean, now I'm curious from your perspective as someone with a disability, is there anything you would say to the public so that if they are one of those people that does take that extra step to help, or if they're not, just
Yeah.
something they could kind of hear from you?
Well, I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and it's, you know, we're still human, we just have this disability. We, our personality hasn't changed really.
Yeah.
Um, and people who still can't get past that, you know, I just say a prayer for them.
Nice way to put it.
How can people honor or celebrate Disability Independence Day? What can they do to make more of us aware of it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the obvious answer is advocating for accessibility for someone you know, or a region that you're, co-located with. I think a less obvious answer is just kind of reflecting on the last year that you've had and all your encounters that you've had with individuals with disabilities, and asking yourself, is there anything I could have done different? Is there something that happened a lot that, well, maybe if we would have changed this or added this technology, that would have never happened, or that will never happen again. And so I think a way to honor or celebrate Disability Independence Day is just to respect the independent Disability Independence Day, and think to yourself, well, what can we do now for all the individuals I'm associated with disabilities for the next year until the next Disability Independence Day, and make actual change and not just think about it or talk about it, make actual changes that impact people's lives. I think that's the best way to honor or celebrate Disability Independence Day.
Right. Well, you just answered my next question too.
Oh, well, was it? Which one was that?
What can the average person do to support those with disabilities?
I'm curious your answer to that one.
Um, I think just be patient and understanding, and but for the grace of God, they could get a disability also. Nobody is immune from it.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing I thought I'd be in would be have Parkinson's or another disease like that. Last thing I expected, and I've also had lung cancer and breast cancer.
Wow.
So it's like, you ask why, but then I stopped asking why, and I just figured there's a reason. I don't know what it is yet, but
I think
just
everyone's got something, you know?
everyone has something, whether it be right out front, like Parkinson's, or whether it be a mental
Yeah.
problem. Everybody has their own problems.
Yeah, everyone's got their own struggles for sure. I completely agree with that. What would you say makes the biggest difference for you when you have an interaction with someone either that works at Arrow, or that you just see in public? Like what is the most impactful action someone can take for you in your eyes?
Um, for me, I would say, uh, whenever I'm having a bad day with it and that. And people ask what they can do to help. And I said, just, don't touch me, don't do anything like that. Just walk behind me in case I fall.
Sure.
Falling is one of the biggest fears that we have. Um, but all in all, I think people have been very kind, very understanding, um, and very helpful when needed.
That's great to hear. How supportive or helpful are the other residents? I'm curious.
They're very, very supportive. Like I
Well,
mentioned, last year I had DBS surgery, and the people here were fantastic.
that's amazing.
I mean, I had a few months there where I didn't have any hair. You know,
Wow.
they
I'm
had,
sure
I
you look
had,
just as pretty as you do now, though.
oh, thank you. You're doing very well.
Thanks.
Um, I had 3 separate surgeries to have this done. And so they had to shave my head each time. So, it would just start to grow out just a little bit and then they'd have to
Mhm.
do it again. But I don't regret it. It's a decision that I thought long and hard about. And uh, there's been improvements, which is great. But the people here, every single day, they ask how I am. What
That's
can they
amazing.
do? Um, and you're doing great and just very supportive.
Positive
And
affirmations and
yeah, and they're in their 80s and 90s and they have their own problems.
yeah, yeah, that's why I asked. I mean, yeah, it's awesome to see. Like we've gone to personally, I visited, I don't know how many Aero communities, but it's an awesome team and not just the team that works there. Like it's awesome to see that's why I asked that question. Um,
Mhm.
the residents really do care for one another, and
Oh,
there's a like sense of
absolutely.
community that I really
It's like a
respect.
home. It's like a family.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is. Yeah. Um, one of the side effects of Parkinson's that bothers me the most is like my dyskinesia.
Okay,
It's when you can't control your movements.
sure.
And I get very self-conscious about that. But again, they're supportive. They don't even see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I find that a lot. Like when I talk to different people with different disabilities, that's kind of what I was saying before is there's this element of self-consciousness, and sometimes it's just kind of in your head and the
Yeah.
people around you aren't even really paying attention to those things. But it's so sad that a lot of people struggle with that and don't even know yet that the other people
Right.
aren't focused on that.
Right.
Well, one question I'd be very curious about is are there any technologies that you found have been really helpful for you, um, either just in life in general or supportive of your disability?
Have you ever heard of Medtronics?
Medtronics, yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. Um, well, since my surgery, I have that device that I have to program
Okay.
in order to help me get through the day. And
Do you do it yourself each day?
yet I do it myself each day. And
Nice.
but the information goes to the clinic and the doctors there.
Sure,
So
so
they
they
can
can
see
see
what's
everything.
happening. Yeah,
That's
right.
awesome. Was that hard to figure out?
For me, it was. I'm not a real techie person.
Okay,
It was a little challenging to know what side I should increase and what side I should decrease.
sure, sure.
But I found that amazing that they implant like a pacemaker type thing, but it's not. And
Yeah,
then how what I program into the system to change the settings, how it gets to downtown Cleveland and how they get the information. It just amazes me.
it's insane. My dad actually had a heart attack about 2 months ago. We were at
Oh,
my cousin's
sorry.
wedding. Thanks. It was It was one of the scariest things I've been through, but we got so lucky. We were like 8 minutes away from this cardiac center, and it was insane just to watch like modern medicine work. I mean, within 50
Yes,
minutes of his heart attack, they had a stent in, and yeah, so I totally understand where you're coming from. Like seeing technology today, especially in these crucial scenarios with healthcare,
right.
is like really amazing.
Yeah, what they can do nowadays, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, Peggy, thank you so much. This has been awesome. One last question I'm really interested in, and I know Arrow would love to hear this from you, is if you could give one piece of advice for the staff at Arrow when they're supporting someone with Parkinson's, what would that be?
I would say be patient with us because everybody has different degrees of Parkinson's. Um, we all use a cane, a walker, or some device to help us get around. We're slow, but so are a lot of the residents and that. But if you have any questions about Parkinson's, anything at all, whether you be curious or whether you need information for somebody else, ask. I'm trying to get a support group together here at Battalion North Royalton and have people with Parkinson's and moving disabilities to come and share their stories, maybe what type of medication, excuse me, they take, and the doctors they go to, just kind of network.
That's
And
great
hopefully,
advice.
yeah,
Peggy, this was an amazing interview. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this with you. So thank you from me. I know
thank
Arrow
you.
is really grateful too that you spent your time doing this today. So I just want to say thank you and thank you to Arrow for even having me on this today. Again, I'm Justin Amoyal. I'm the CEO of Impruvon Health. We automate and streamline medication management workflows for staff in congregate care settings and long-term care settings such as assisted livings, group homes, independent livings. We also help individuals attain and motivate independence for themselves in managing their own medications in all of these settings. If anyone's interested in learning more, check us out at www.impruvonhealth.com. That's IMPRUVON health.com. Thank you so much.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful